What are Athletic Iansan's biggest pros and cons? That's what I'm here to tell you today. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. Okay, if there's anything that I have to say about this unit, it's the fact that she rivals BENNETT. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, after 5 whole years of Genshin Impact, we finally got another 4-star buffer that is on the same caliber as the Unlucky Adventurer Kid. This is a huge deal, because BENNETT is a staple to the Genshin meta, in the same way that water is a staple to the survival of human beings. Gaining another accessible character of that power level is genuinely no joke. This means that building Iansan is gonna make your life so much easier when it comes to team building. We've already gotten plenty of good team comps that don't require BENNETT or any sort of attack buffer. Building a second Abyss team without BENNETT has never been easier. That's true. However, with Iansan around, now if you do want to run 2 heavily attack scaling teams on either side of the Abyss, now you can do so easily, because you finally have a secondary 4-star buffer that is on his level. Iansan is quite literally making Genshin history here. BENNETT has been revered as a 6-star character by many for the longest time, and for good reason. He's still S tier even to this day. Getting another character of that caliber is genuinely no joke. So if you're somebody that really hates BENNETT, or if you're someone who really wanted a second really strong attack buffer, this fitness trainer is the right lass for the job. Granted that your characters can move around a lot. Her attack buff will decrease over time if your main DPS isn't constantly moving around. That's the main handicap she faces. If your main DPS moves around a lot, such as Clorox, Bleach, Kinitra, Moika, then you're all good to go. She's essentially the complete antithesis to BENNETT, a character who actively wants your main DPS to be moving all around the place, as opposed to being confined within a circle. I actually find that kind of funny, since it checks out that the fitness instructor wants you to keep moving. Clever, Hoyoverse, very clever. I'd actually like to touch on that point a little more. Her being a movement-heavy buffer allows her to fill a niche that we were lacking in, those being attack buffers that suit a dynamically moving character as well. Yes, you can use BENNETT with your Kinich, but to say that it's a flawless synergy just wouldn't be true, because of how sometimes you simply won't have the attack buff up for all of your cannon shots, due to how sporadic his movements can be. And yes, that happens even if you take the short linger of the attack buff into account. Iansan is a perfect remedy. Even take a Chloriander Overload team. She is going to be a literal perfect fit here. It feels as if Clorox Bleach is constantly getting new teammates, and Iansan's release is no exception. Now we have an excellent mobile buffer for her. This is really neat in her case in particular, because she darts around the place so much with her skill dashes. Their synergy is a match made in Celestia. Okay, I'm not sure who at Hoyoverse decided that the Exalted Pyro Archon needed a buff. Did they hire the guy who buffs Mr. Settle Down once every 5 seconds? Anyways, yes, for whatever unholy reason, one of the most broken characters in the entire game is going to be seeing a buff to her performance. She's kind of already nuking the meta as we know it, so I'm not sure what Hoyoverse was thinking here, but I suppose when you make a buffer that supports movement-heavy characters, this was pretty much bound to happen no matter what. Essentially, if your main DPS isn't moving around, then her attack buff will tick down over time until it lessens by quite a large amount. So you get actively punished for not keeping your main DPS hot on their feet. Or I suppose wheels in the cases of some. So if you're playing a main DPS that moves around a whole lot and appreciates attack buffs, then Iansan's gonna be an excellent pick for their teams. However, that's not to say that attack percent is the only thing that this fitness trainer is capable of bringing to the table. No, she's also able to offer you some other things. 4-piece Intercity. I think you're probably getting sick of me hearing me glaze this set at this stage, because it's used on basically every single Nalon support in existence. But yes, you can have her buff damage bonus percent too through these means, which expands her buffing profile in a very meaningful and accessible way. 4-piece Noblesse will work as an alternative too, but it's definitely not going to cook as hard as Cinder in a team where you have no Cinder users. But it's a cool alternative if you do indeed already have the set effect being procced in your team. With max Constellations, she's also able to provide some damage bonus to your active character, which is very cool. Granted, it's locked behind C6, and I don't want to sit here and pretend like that's accessible. Getting new 4-stars at C6 is not that easy with how large the current pool of 4-star characters is. However, it's a huge additional piece of buffing that she's able to provide to your on-field DPS. It'd be daft of me to pretend like it isn't there, so you're getting a whole lot with the Iansan package. Attack percent, damage bonus percent, and some nice extra buffing if you're able to land yourself C6. There's also the fact that Iansan's able to provide you with some minor healing. It's not some shocking, groundbreaking amount. It won't be rivaling BENNETT's healing, that much is for sure. However, it's still a cool little bonus for the sake of some extra sustenance. I definitely wouldn't rely on it for fanfare generation though if you're trying to play Iansan in a team with our beloved Lady Farina. However, it's a cool additional benefit that our kit provides, so I'm gonna mention it here. As amazing as Iansan is, we should still definitely go over her flaws. For example, she is indeed a fantastic buffer, and it's amazing that she's going to be making Genshin history by being one of the only characters who's ever dared to rise up and challenge BENNETT's throne. Yet with that being said, you still need movement. If you're playing a really stiff DPS that doesn't tend to move around all that much, While they'll still be able to make good use out of Iansan, they certainly won't be appreciating her full potential in the way that some of our units would. She'll still be able to buff their attack, however, that buff won't be as large after a certain point. Remember, you aren't maintaining your large buff if your on-field character isn't moving around a whole lot. We have plenty of movement-heavy DPSs in this current Genshin day and age, so it's not like Iansan will be strapped for team options. She'll absolutely find a comfortable place in the meta upon release, I'm well assured of that. However, with that being said, if you don't have any super movement-heavy main DPS characters on your account, then you might not feel her presence as much as, say, a Coriander main, for example. Then we have to talk about the curse of Cinder City. Don't get me wrong, the fact that she can use this set is generally a positive quality more than anything else. This is more so an issue of the lack of domains that we're getting. Now, with that being said, 5.5 is bringing us 2 new artifact sets. However, neither of them are primarily supportive, so the only true not-long support set we have at the moment remains as being 4P Cinder City. This is mostly only a flaw because of how almost every single not-long support ideally wants to use this. Obviously, there are alternatives depending on each individual character, which helps certain teams to varying degrees of effectiveness. For example, the ability to put Sit Lolly on 4-piece instructors instead of 4-piece Cinder City. However, if you've built most of your not-long units on Cinder City, then it's likely that you're going to see 2 units on the same team using the set. This is even more concerning when you consider that Iansan is a universal attack buffer, so this scenario is actually quite likely to come to fruition. Iansan's alternative would be 4-piece Noblesse, which just isn't as good as Cinder City. At least the workaround for this is simple. Use alternative sets on your other teammates, such as Archaic Petra on your Shield End to name an example. This flaw also won't be that prevalent if you only have Iansan as your team's only not-on support. Iansan's also primarily for ATK-Scalers, which we do have plenty of in fairness. A lot of strong ones at that. The current strongest DPS in the game is none other than the honorary son of Caledon Moika herself, so that's not a bad quality whatsoever. However, we also have a lot of non-attack scaling DPSs that are incredibly strong. Sure, Moika may be the current best DPS in the game, but let's not underrate Mr. Settle Down here. That lad's still the second best DPS in all of Genshin Impact, and he's an HP scaler. Mualani is a character who is very movement heavy, and is also extremely formidable in the current Genshin meta, yet she can't take full advantage of Iansan. You get the idea. Yes, Iansan's buffing profile can indeed stretch beyond attack buffing via only 4-piece Cinder City, but because we have so many accessible users of this set, with characters like Kachina being completely free and usable bots of the set down at level 20, there's much less of a need to use Iansan specifically. And while her C6's damage dealt increase is really nice, well, let's not pretend like getting a C6 4-star is an easy task. Obviously, this isn't really a deal breaker. Characters have niches, that is completely fine. And Iansan shines brilliantly within her own, but it is a shame that she won't really help out mobile DPSs who could have utilized her kick gimmick well, such as the Shark Surfer. And this next point shouldn't really come as a surprise, since we're talking about a 4-star character here, but she does really want her Constellations in order to perform at top level. I mean, she'll still be very, very good down at C0, so this isn't a total deal breaker, but you 100% cannot justify using her outside of her main attack scaling teams without C6, and this is something that BENNETT actually has over her. All you really want for that guy is C1. Then you're good to go. Yes, the +3 to his burst via C5 is pretty big, and his C6 is a lovely bonus to power DPS teams. However, he still does his job just fine with only 1 additional copy. Granted, he feels a bit clunky at C0, whereas Iansan will still do the core of her job just fine with only 1 single copy. But it's undeniable that Constellations do really make the character feel a heck of a lot better to play. Realistically, if we assume average luck, you will probably get C2 at most when going for a C0 copy of a 5-star character, so that's probably the point that most people are going to be at with her, unless you're going for C6 specifically. Keep that in mind. Iansan is stupidly broken for a 4-star character. I mean, Notlon's 4-star cast has been really impressive in general, and Fontaine also introduced a slew of fantastic, well-balanced 4-star characters. Chevreuse, anyone? Hoiverse has been doing an excellent job in the 4-star kit department recently. We've had very few blunders in recent times. Iansan may very well be entering S tier upon her release. It's crazy to me that we're finally getting a character who will challenge BENNETT's throne. Like, wow. That's something for the history books, my guy. As a Kenichi enjoyer, I'm really looking forward to having him get buffed up by this fitness trainer. But what do you think about Iansan? Does she meet your expectations, or are you not fully confident in her rise to glory? Let me know down below, I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, I have a ZZZ second channel. Head on over and subscribe if you're interested in some fun, silly ZZZ content. I'd also like to mention that I stream on Twitch. I stream once a week every week on Saturday, starting from 3 PM UK time. Come along so we can play Wuthering Waves, ZZZ, and do some other fun stuff together. Hopefully this video was able to tell you Iansan's biggest pros and cons. This has been Juice, signing out, and here we all were, thinking that the almighty exalted Pyro Archon herself will be the one to usurp Bennett's throne. Nope, that honor goes to this silly little fitness trainer. History has well and truly been made.